Welcome to the Rebel Matriarch Podcast. My name is Samantha Sanford and I am your host, and I want to invite you into this session with an open heart and an open mind, because this is not just a podcast. It is a global movement, a global uprising, and this is a representation of what is truly possible and available to women today. Hello, gorgeous women of the Rebel Matriarch Podcast. I am especially excited to be introducing you to a very special woman in my life. She has been a huge part of my own healing and health journey, and her work has set my ass on fire and has allowed me to build my mission in a way that I've never been able to do before. And so I'm really excited to bring her to you. And I really want to invite you to just take a moment and really anchor into this conversation, because this message is so important. The medicine she brings is so important, and it applies to everyone, especially women. And so Tori Vallen, thank you so much for being here on the podcast with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. What an introduction. Did you just say I set your ass on fire?
You absolutely set my ass on fire. Without you, I could not be doing what I'm doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm speechless. Yes. I'm so happy to be part of it.
I love that. And so for the women who are joining us who don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of background as to who you are, where you're from?
I'd love to. I'm Tori Vallen. I'm a women's integrative health and nutrition and lifestyle coach. I'm also a functional weight loss specialist. I'm based in Adelaide, but I work with women everywhere. I don't discriminate. I love working with women over 40. I do work with women a little younger as well, but working with women who are struggling with the perimenopause or menopausal stage of their life, where the excess weight starting to creep up. They're feeling exhausted. They're feeling really low. They might struggle with depression, anxiety. There might have been some older traumas that have started to crack open. Autoimmune disease might have started to progress in the body. Gut dysfunction. Those are the women that I just love working with, because it's, so much of my own story is echoed in those women. I see so much of myself in women who are struggling with their health.
I love that. And amazing. And can you allude us to some of your story that led you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a history of some pretty poor health, which I turned it all around. I transformed poor health in my own body, which is why I'm so passionate about helping women do the same in their bodies. To briefly fill you in a little bit, going back to when I was in my early 20s, I had a grand mal seizure at work one day. I was taken to hospital, and it was discovered that I'd had a little brain bleed. I was put on anti-seizure medication, and not very long after that, there were a few other kind of diagnoses that came in as well, like a diagnosis of lupus. It had been discovered that these rashes I was having on this spot on my body, and this kind of presentation on my face at this red, what they call the butterfly rash, as well as a few kind of mystery infections and symptoms I'd been having. When they looked at that diagnosis, they decided that I had lupus. And then around about a year after that, I'd moved into state, and I crashed into a suicidal depression. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I was placed on a number of medications. Actually, it just became more and more medications. There were antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications and anticonvulsants and antipsychotic medications and sleep medications and lithium and Valium, and then eventually thyroxine. And I was hospitalized after this suicide attempt. And the depression, this extreme depression that I was experiencing, it did not get better in spite of all these medications that I was taking. Nothing really seemed to be working. And then I was kind of experiencing this cascade effect of being on so many medications, that how much they were impacting my thyroid and other systems of my body, and my weight ballooned, and my thyroid was not functioning well, and my skin was covered in bumps and my depression was worsening and insulin resistance kicked in. And, a number of years after that, I kind of discovered that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome and started metformin. And, but going back to this experience in hospital, I was facing, after being resistant to so many treatments and medications, I was facing electroconvulsive shock treatment, which is still, I
They
believe.
still do that.
Well, they did when I was there.
Wow.
Whether or not they still have the equipment for that now, I'm not sure, but it was something that was discussed with me. And it was a real, it snapped me into thinking something is not right. This is not working for me. And I felt quite let down by the help that I'd sought out that clearly was not right for me. And I thought there must be another way. And I had to take my health into my own hands at that point, because outsourcing my health was not working for me, following the well-meaning advice of many specialists, many doctors and GPs wasn't working for me. And so I created my own tiny little protocol. And it was very simple to begin with, but I built on it. And it was so simple, Samantha. It was literally, I took myself home. I somehow got out of, it's very hard to get out of the hospital system when you're in that system, but I managed to get out of it. And that's a story for another day. But once I was home, I am certainly not advocating for people DIYing coming off their medications, but that is what I needed to do at the time, or that is what I did at the time, in the absence of better strategies. And I didn't do it as gradually as I should have. But I put myself on this very simple protocol, which really was a pad, a piece of paper, and I'd written on there that starting tomorrow, I needed to at least make myself a cup of tea. This was the very beginning of nourishing myself back to better health. And once I got that under my belt, I'd had a few days where really that was all I was capable of doing, was getting out of bed and making a cup of tea and then going back to bed. My body wasn't working properly. My brain wasn't functioning well. My mood was still so low, but I just had this instinct. I had this intuition that I would be able to build it back through nourishing myself and through creating a really simple little protocol for myself that I would just build on. And once I had that under my belt and I was satisfied that that had become natural to me to get up and make myself a cup of tea and then take myself back to bed, then I added the next thing. And it was just it was so simple. Just go for a walk around the block. I'm not even sure if I made it around the block that first time, because I was so fatigued and feeling so unwell from the withdrawal of the medications. I might have made it maybe out the front, but that was my intention, was to build to the point of getting up, making myself a cup of tea, and then being able to go for a walk around the block. And then once I had that under my belt, then it was time after a couple of days to start with a better eating routine instead of relying on, something packaged, something quick. It was to make myself, I think it might have been a bowl of microwave veggies. I'm not sure. I was 22. I didn't know better than microwaves at the time. That's what it was, and I just built and built until, and it would have taken me many months. I don't really remember how long to get to the point where I had some rituals in my day of this cup of tea, this walk, this making of the meal. And I built my health back through this tiny protocol. And I wish the story ended there and I said, I lived happily ever after. And then I built this amazing health coaching business, but actually I had some setbacks. It came time to having children, and I'd had this struggle with my fertility through polycystic ovarian syndrome. And to have my first child, it took a long time to fall pregnant. And I'd reached out to get some help from fertility specialists and realized that there were still many changes I needed to make, because I was very insulin resistant and I was actually not ovulating. I'd never really had normal menstrual cycles, not really my whole life. And but hadn't really pulled the pieces together, because if we want to have children, we need to ovulate regularly. It was like, okay. And so this was another wake-up call, yet another awakening that I needed to change. And so I set about making more dietary changes that were more in line with a lower glycemic lifestyle. After having my first child, I had another range of setbacks where I was diagnosed with aggressive and very severe periodontal disease. I have these photos of just blood pouring out of my mouth, and a periodontal surgeon told me it was the absolute worst case of periodontal disease he'd ever seen, and I was going to lose every tooth in my mouth.
Oh, wow.
And I cried for about 24 hours. And then when I stopped crying, I picked myself up and I thought, even when he said to me, you can't reverse this, there's nothing. I said, what can I do? Can I reverse this? He was like, no, I've never seen anyone reverse it before. But after I cried all the tears in the world, I picked myself up and I thought, well, I'm going to be the first. I'll show you. You know, I had enough rebel in me that I thought, I'll be the first. I don't care whether we have evidence of anyone doing this before. I'll be the first. I don't need evidence. It's been done before. And I lost one tooth, Samantha, just one, and all of the rest is there. everything in my mouth is really amazing. So things were reasonably stable, and then I got hit with a very traumatic event in 2013 where I lived with PTSD for a couple of years, and I felt like a baby just learning to walk again. You know, women who've been through this, where you know a very traumatic event has sent you into the spirals of PTSD, and you know it kicked off health issues again. Then I'd gone from being hypothyroid to being hyperthyroid. Suddenly I couldn't put on weight and I was losing weight very rapidly. And I had these IBS symptoms that were debilitating, and absolutely debilitating panic disorder. I could not even come out of my bedroom. I couldn't care for my daughter. My body was completely stuck in fight or flight, and a lot of the autoimmune symptoms kind of began to return. And I was seeing every practitioner I could think of to try and help me find my way forward and tell me how to get better. And I actually got refused from a lot of practitioners. They were like, I don't know how to help you. You know, I'd get referred to somebody else, or some of them would just say flatly, I can't help you. I don't know what to do with you. And it was such an enormous catalyst for growth for me, because I had to learn again, but in a really big way, to stop looking outside of myself and stop looking for the big thing that was going to save me, the next naturopath or the next integrative doctor or the next supplement or the big test that would tell me what was wrong. I stopped looking for the big thing outside of myself, and I realized I was going to be the one who was going to heal me. I was the one. It wasn't, and I was terrified when I made that realization, because I'm like, but how can I do that? I'm not an expert. I don't know how to do this. I need something else. And I wrestled with this for probably 24 to 48 hours before I felt the grief of that, you know, the attachment to something outside of myself. And then I accepted it, and I made healing my priority. And I just decided that every decision of every tiny thing that I did throughout the day, that every little thing would be aligned with taking me towards amazing health. That instead of walking around the house with a terrified look on my face, that I would wear a smile. And instead of being in silence and letting the scary thoughts echo around my head, that I would put great tunes on. And this is not about distraction, but this is about choosing in every moment to experience pleasure, and choosing joy, and choosing presence with my child, instead of letting the monkey mind worry about what's happening next week or the horrible conversation I'd had with my spouse the day before, you know. So I had to be so very conscious of choosing that which was good for me in every single moment. And and by a couple of years later, it took a little while to move through this PTSD, this nervous breakdown that I had. But by 2015, I was feeling so much better. I gave birth to my second child. I promised myself, having been through what I've been through, having healed, and really I've only just scraped the surface, because there's so much more to the story, especially about the neurological symptoms I was experiencing. But I decided that I was well enough now that I absolutely must, like I'm absolutely obligated to now hold other women in a container and support other women through the hardest times in their lives, and showing them how they can reach within themselves and find that inner feminine leader that's going to lead them not just to the most radiant health of their life, but to the life of their dreams, the body of their dreams, the experience that they always dreamed about. And that is what I do now in Radiant Health Reset.
Yes, and I am a testimony of that. Okay, so I just want to hold space for a moment, because I can't even fathom, comprehend, empathize with everything you've just shared, knowing that it's only like the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you've experienced in your life. And just thank you for being so resilient, and thank you for never giving up, because a lot of people have been through a lot less and decided that it wasn't worth it. And yet you chose to like tune in to your intuition, and you chose to tune into a higher power and tune into your strength as a woman. And I'm just like in awe of where you're at now, like knowing you now and then hearing your story. It's like, how are you the same person? And so I would love it if you, because I really want people to understand just how dedicated you've been to your vision, your mission. And I know when I came to work with you, I was looking at all your accolades and like certifications and all the things that you've actually, like who you are and like what you're capable of. Can you actually just like name drop what you qualified as and like all the things, right? So that people can understand like just how much of a wealth of knowledge you are and how powerful and potent your medicine is.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for that invitation. I actually think that it's a little bit to do with the certifications and the qualifications, but it's so much more about, and I say this to my clients when they say, hey, what do you think of homeopathy? What do you think of chiropractic? What do you think of, oncology? What do you think of that? Well, you know what? The modality, the certifications, all of that matters less to me than who that person is, their ability to be present with you, their ability to believe in your ability to get well, and their ability to instill the belief in you that you're able to get well. And I actually think that is the greatest thing that I offer women, is my unparalleled belief in their ability to create the health that they want to create and create the lives that they want to create. Setting that aside.
Thank you for being humble and now take up space.
I'm an integrative nutrition and lifestyle coach certified through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I have studied many aspects of nutrition and human biochemistry, biology. I am a level 2 student at the School of Applied Functional Medicine. Shout out to my mentor and teacher, Tracy Harrison, who I just, so much of what I teach women, I feel quite emotional because Tracy is an extraordinary, extraordinary woman. And so much of what I teach women comes from Tracy's incredible wisdom. She's one of those women that she's like high potency, but like low noise. Like she doesn't shout. You won't find her in social media, but like, I want to be that person that really shines her light out to the world. So she's incredible. So look, I've done lots of courses, lots of certifications, but I actually think it's my lived experience is what allows me to hold this space for women and work through these pillars to help women get well and offer what is truly radical transformation. I get very, very fast results with women, probably the fastest I've seen. I've had women turn their autoimmune disease around in just a couple of weeks. I've had women come to me telling me that they live with treatment-resistant depression. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see. And 3 weeks later, they're like, I'm now talking to my practitioner about coming down off my medication because I'm waking up feeling happy in the morning. What I've seen is extraordinary, and it just, the human body is an incredible machine, a healing machine, and you give it half a chance and it'll meet you there, like give it half a chance, it will heal. It's very responsive, and it's all about the intention. My intention as I come to you, your intention as you meet me, how open you are. And I really think through my own story of healing my body, like so much of the work was up here that's filtered through here. And so a lot of what I offer my clients is piercing truth. Sometimes, I'll often be the one who'll say the thing that everyone else is afraid to say. Like, honey, I know you're telling me you're not stressed, but I can feel your trauma. Can we work with that? Can we unpack that right now? And they might not have even realize that there was any connection at all to the symptoms they're experiencing now and that thing that happened a few years ago. But that's, that's what I offer, because it's who I am, and it's who I am to my women. So that was a roundabout way of saying I'm a health coach. I'm a women's health coach. Functional medicine is my thing. Integrative nutrition, a functional medicine, beautiful blend, and blending that with intuition and feminine leadership, and teaching women how to be incredible leaders of themselves.
Yes, I love this. I love this. And it's such an important conversation, because even for myself, but also just witnessing so many women in my life, and also just with the women that I meet, the women that I work with, and noticing how disconnected we are from our bodies and from our intuition and from our personal power, and how the health of our body impacts that so greatly, but we're so unaware, right? By design, they want us disconnected, right? Because a woman in her personal power, in her feminine leadership, is a force to be reckoned with. She is, I say, she's a weapon of mass destruction, and she destroys all the illusions, and you can't break her. She's indestructible. And so she becomes a threat, which is why they've, over thousands of years, have intentionally disconnected ourselves from our power, our health, and but not just women, this is global. This is humanity, right? Humanity is so disconnected from the human. We're designed to heal ourselves, but we're so conditioned to trust the word of a doctor and trust the medication that they enforce, and that they get paid to enforce as well. They're making money off keeping us sick. Hello. And so I feel like this conversation is so important. And I really want to narrow it in and keep it focused on women. I know that's your specialty as well. Yeah. And for the women who are listening in and they're yeah, I get it. But also I'm busy. I've got a lot going on. This sounds too hard. It's overwhelming. It's nice for you, but I'm okay with where I'm at. What comes out when that comes up?
That's the programming. That's the programming. I'm too busy. I've got a lot going on. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. Things aren't that bad. Yeah, they programmed you to think like that.
Exactly.
That is all by design. And what I want to bring them back to is are you fulfilled? Are you living your purpose? Are you doing what your soul is driving you to do? Are you? If not, we need to have a serious conversation here. This is where we need to go. Because women are, this is what I started hearing. And around about 2020, I was being told, but call it source, spirit, I don't mind, my higher self, women are on the front lines of bringing in the new earth. And I was told, you got to help them. They're being held back. They're tired. They're overweight and embarrassed to be in front of the camera. They are lost. They're depressed. And it's all by design. Because as long as women aren't strong, we'll never get there to the new earth. And some of us are in the new earth already, right? But this is where humanity needs to be. And it's we were meant to be there yesterday, time's running out.
Yep.
And there's this lag. And so I was getting this message, and, I mainly like you, I do what I'm told. If I don't, I get my ass kicked. But I was being told women are on the front lines of bringing in the new earth, and you're meant to help the women. You're meant to help the leaders. You've got to show them they're being held back. They're not doing what they need to do. They're getting distracted. They're leaving a whole lot of energy sideways, and you've got to bring them back to stay vertical and keep on this path of ascension and keep moving towards. And by the way, most of the time, women know what they desire. They know what they're meant to be doing. They can feel what their soul is driving them towards, but they've bought into the programming. They've bought into the programming of, oh, I shouldn't do that because that won't earn as much money as my corporate job, or I can't do that right now because I'm exhausted. Yeah, you're exhausted because, big food is feeding you addictive foods, and big pharma's got you on medications that is, harming your mitochondria. And, so what do I say to those women? Let's have a fucking serious conversation here, because you are needed, not tomorrow, yesterday. It's time to step up. It's time to step into your absolute highest potential. Actually, humanity depends on it. Humanity depends on it. Now that, for women who are in a lot of pain, that's not really going to motivate them. They're so consumed by their exhaustion, their fatigue, their excess weight. Actually, what we need to do with those women is just get them feeling okay again. But for those women who are kind of feeling okay, they're not in a lot of pain, but they're kind of cruising, they're just kind of coasting through life and thinking that that's all there is to it. Like, yeah, we get married, we get a mortgage and we pump out a couple of kids and we just get by. We just get by. But no, I'm sure they feel their soul whispering to them, like, women, we always want more. And it's meant to be that way. We're supposed to want more. That's that desire. That's love. That's God living through us. Then you've got to listen to that desire. You've got to follow that love living through you, because that is the power that's going to bring humanity forward into the 5D, into this incredible dimension of unconditional love, which is where we were meant to be yesterday, like I was saying. So this is what I'm here for. I'm here to wake women up and saying, it's not enough. I don't want you going through life feeling tired. I don't want you going through life being so inflamed that you get up in the morning and your knee joints ache and you can feel it in your back and your hips. I don't want you feeling low and depressed. I don't want you hating photos of yourself. I don't want any of this. I don't want it for you, but I don't want it for humanity, because humanity is at risk. Like, it'll be okay, but it's only going to be okay if we start paying attention now. Now is the time. We can't waste any more time. It's now.
Is this thing on? Are we paying attention?
I love how
this is medicine right here, ladies. This is look, full transparency.
I know I'm speaking your language.
I know you are speaking my language. And full transparency, I identified as the excuse queen. Yeah. So for so many years, suggestions would come at me, solutions would come at me, opportunities would come at me, and I would have every excuse not to do it, and it would all be legitimate and okay, and I would feel validated in my excuses, and all it did is it set me further and 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 further back, until it was I literally cannot care for my kids anymore, and this is actually not acceptable and it's non-negotiable. And what drives me crazy, but also I understand why it is the way that it is, because we've been conditioned for so many years. There's this crazy expectation that mothers are meant to be tired all the time. They're meant to be exhausted. They're meant to be depleted. They're meant to eat fast food, eat snacks, eat in between everybody else. It's always care for everyone else, do for everyone else. Right. And so we find ourselves in these crazy dips of motivation, frustration, boredom, depression, anxiety, exhaustion. Why are we actually teaching our kids that this is acceptable when there's an immediate solution that we get to actually, like you said, within a matter of weeks, people experiencing extreme pain and autoimmune disease and extreme non-responsive to medication depression within a matter of weeks. Ladies, within a matter of weeks, they've started to experience huge shifts. If they can do that, what's possible for the women who are not having extreme depression and not having extreme autoimmune disease?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. For those women who aren't in pain, sometimes it's the motivation isn't there. Pain is a big motivator. If you're in a lot of pain, if you're so depressed about the excess weight, or you literally have pain and inflammation in your body and you can't do what you need to do, that's pretty motivating. The problem with using that as a motivator, though, is when you feel okay again, then you're it's cool. I can have a little of this and I can do it. And the energy starts leaking out sideways again and you lose your focus. So I'd far rather that women aren't motivated by getting away from pain, but are super motivated by moving towards that which they truly desire. And I mean, I don't mean like I desire the Doritos on the coffee table. I'm talking about like short-term gratification. I'm talking about, we all know, we all want more. We want more for our lives. We want more for our children. We want more for our business. We want more, more, more. Like that's the feminine energy. The feminine always wants more. So you've got to step into more. Be motivated by wanting more. Be motivated by that, because that is what, if it's best for you, sweetheart, it's best for humanity. I promise you, whatever is in your highest interest is in everybody else's highest interest too. I promise you, I know this. I know this from my own lived experience. I know this from working with women for many, many years and seeing women transform and then seeing the ripple effect that happens around them, to their families, to their partners, to everyone. We cannot keep going with this fucking bullshit programming that you've got to put everyone else ahead of yourself. It's faulty, and it's going to keep humanity stuck. I promise you, the moment you start to nourish yourself, everybody benefits. Like I'm sure you can be testament to this, Samantha. You've experienced this in your own life. And if we asked ourselves, like, we've been living for this way for a little while. We're used to this programming that told us put everyone ahead of yourself, like feed the kids and then feed yourself later, and get the kids into bed and then you go to bed later. And if you get time for yourself, it's lucky, right? We've been doing that for long enough, like running on empty for so long. And then if you ask yourself the question, when one of my little girls grows up and I see her living like that, is that what I want for her? And actually, your heart would break at the very thought of her living like that. You're like, no, I don't want that for my little girl. That breaks my heart. That can't happen. Okay, great. Now we need to remember that children are little tiny sponges. Monkey see, monkey do. If you never sit down with a cup of tea in front of your children and put your feet up and just breathe, how in the heck are you expecting them to do that when they're older? If they never saw that, they have no reference point to that. You're actually obligated to do it. If you want to be an amazing parent, nourish yourself first. I think there was a saying, it takes a little bit of selflessness to be a good parent, but it takes a lot of selfishness to be a great one.
I love that. And is it really selfish?
And is it really selfish? We've got to redefine this word selfish. I don't really like that, but it was one of those little pieces that woke me up.
The sentiment was good.
The sentiment is good. Yeah, that's right. Because it's nourishment. It's caring for ourselves. Yeah, we've got to be so hyper aware of the modeling we're doing for our children. And there's so many women that come to me and they're struggling with excess weight and they're exhausted and disease is beginning to set in. And when I ask them what they do through the day, they don't actually eat a lot of the time. They're not really, they might be okay at drinking water, but they're kind of surviving on chugging down coffee. And maybe like they grab a bit of toast as they run out of the house, or they'll grab fruit and they'll kind of think they're doing okay. My diet's pretty good, but they're actually severely malnourished. And they might, sometimes, Samantha, they'll come to me and they're like, oh, I already cut out gluten because I heard that was bad. And I already cut out alcohol because I heard that keeps you inflamed. It does. That's great. I already cut out sugar because I heard that's not good for my metabolism. Great. And yet the weight keeps piling on and they're even more exhausted. And they just got their results back and they're very inflamed because they're still not nourishing. They've cut out a lot of stuff. That's amazing, but they're still not nourishing themselves. Then they come into my world and I teach them how to actually care for themselves, like real self-care, like not like a glass of champagne and a bubble bath and getting your nails done, not like that kind of self-care, but actual self-care where we're loving ourselves through nourishing ourselves. How do we show love to our children? We make them a beautiful meal. We give them a cuddle and we make sure they get a good sleep. And sometimes our love is tough. It's like, no, you can't stay up until midnight scrolling through your phone. And they're not doing that because they're too little, but we do that, right? But it's like, love can be tough. It's like, no, sweetheart, I'm not going to let you be up until all hours. You're going to go to bed at a reasonable time, right? That's love too. Love is the beautiful, nourishing meal, and love is the limits. And we've got to, most of the time when women say, I don't really know how to love myself, well, just take a look at how you do it for your children. Chances are you probably need to do that for yourself. You probably need to have good meals regularly through the day, right? And it probably needs to be the beautiful, colorful, healthy stuff. And you probably need to have it sitting down, because we say to our kids, oh no, sweetheart, we don't run around while we're eating. And what are we doing?
Yeah.
Running around, driving a car, or on the phone, and we're eating, right? And we say, don't be up late, sweetheart. Yeah, don't be up late, sweetheart. Don't be up late, sweetheart. What are we doing? We're scrolling. Love has limits, and love has nourishment, and love is very warm, and we've really got to turn that back onto ourselves. Observe how we do that to our children. Do more of it for ourselves.
I love that. It's when you think about how you're modeling it for your kids, that's what brought it home for me. It's like, I don't want my girls to ever experience the way I've experienced life, and the self-hate and the judgment and the criticism and the shame and all the rest of it. And so I put myself on an incredible journey, including your Radiant Health Reset,
Yes.
which is like, and then watching them enjoy the foods that, like, because I'll make my foods and I'm eating it, and now they get cranky because they're like, excuse me, where's my piece of chicken? And it's like, okay, it's coming, and mom, can I have more of this spinach? And it's like, who even are you kids? Like, what do you mean? Yes, of course you can. Which is beautiful. And I'm curious because there's so much information out there, and it can be overwhelming. And there's also a lot of false information, especially for women. And what are some of like the really key, or like the top fake healthy, right? So like there's a lot of information saying, oh, like as a woman, like you got to balance your hormones and you got to do this, and like you really need to eat more of this. Like when you hear women saying, well, I'm eating more of this because it's supposed to be good for me, and you're like, no. What are some of those things that might shock women, and they're going, oh crap, that's what I've been eating?
Oh gosh, so many things. But a concern I hold close to my heart is this idea that women need to give up carbs, to lose weight. And it's a really concerning trend. And I don't understand why the world talks about it in a particular way, because I don't think about it or talk about it in that way. I was just saying this morning, I was running on a free live training in my Facebook group, and I was saying, by all means, stop eating bread if you want to stop eating bread, because it's a food that's very difficult on human metabolism. When we grind grains down and we bake them into something, that's a kind of okay to have sometimes, but it should never, we've got an over-reliance on grain-based foods in society. We should never have relied on that as a staple. Very, very harsh on metabolism. If you want to give it up because it's an ultra-processed food. Give it up because it's very harsh on the metabolism because of how it's made and processed. Don't give it up on the basis it's a carbohydrate. There's nothing wrong with carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates. Arguably, we would end up with, over time, thyroid dysfunction if we embark on a very low carbohydrate diet. So I have enormous concerns about people doing carnivore long-term, keto diets long-term. Any of those, we call them VLCs, very low carb diets, are highly concerning to me. And women will tend to experience some amazing outcomes when they first embark on these diets, but almost certainly because of what they're eliminating, and not because of what the diet actually consists of. These are not well-rounded diets. And you're in my container right now, so you would know this, Samantha. I use foods as medicine, and I use a number of different foods. I've got a lot of little foods in my toolbox, and particularly helpful for women. And you would know among those foods, yes, there are animal proteins, but there are plant foods as well. And some of those plant foods are so potent, I don't know how to get the same effect with women's hormones without these plant-based foods. We have so many medicines at our disposal, and not all of them are food-based medicines, because dance is a medicine, and talking with women is a medicine, and oxygen is a medicine. But then there are foods that are medicines too. And among those medicines, there are some I haven't worked out how to do it without a plant. You know what I'm saying? Like in our container, we use particular seeds as medicine to rebalance hormones, and we use particular vegetables as medicines to balance our hormones. And it's unmatched. And if someone's embarking on a carnivore diet, it's not, the medicines aren't in there, not inadvertently, and not consciously and on purpose either. So yes, people experience some short-term benefits there. I'm not saying there's no place for carnivore, because clinically, we do use carnivore for certain dynamics, but we use them short term for very particular outcomes, and then we shift to something else. And same with keto. We can use keto in a clinical setting, and we give it a start date and end date. You know what I'm saying? And then once we achieve the particular outcomes, then we quickly move to something that's more balanced. And so I'm an advocate for balance. I'm an advocate for food clarity. A lot of the women who go through my container will say to me after 90 days, I have food clarity now. I know what my body wants to eat and what it doesn't want to eat. Because we do this incredible, I would call it an experiment, would you say, with our bodies. And we learn very quickly what our bodies like and don't like. And we really learn to deepen the relationship with our body and listen to what our bodies are telling us. And they communicate loud and clear. You'd know this yourself. And every woman who's done the Radiant Health Reset will say this as well. My body tells me what I want and I can rely on it. And it's good, strong messaging. But the signal isn't clear when it's clouded by addictive foods, yeah? Or when it's clouded by our outsourcing of our belief set. Oh, I heard this expert and he said that keto was really good. Well, is it good for you? Like, we need to actually live through this and experience this, because once you've experienced what foods make you feel good, you'll have no confusion about this ever again. You'll never outsource your ideas. You'll never buy into outside beliefs ever again once you've experienced this reset and deepened your experience with your body and learn to listen to the true wisdom that your body has. So I'm pretty concerned about some fad diets out there, it would be fair to say. I'm just concerned generally about the amount of bombardment there is in the health media and on social media about supplements being the solution to problems when they very rarely are. These weight loss drops. I'm really concerned actually about MLM supplementation and some of the claims that are being made. Yeah, I think they rarely live up to the claims, and I worry about women spending a lot of money on these things thinking that, oh, this is the thing that's going to fix it, when, we've got to stop looking for the thing, whether it's the supplement or the test or the person, and we've got to stop looking for these esoteric solutions and bypassing good foundations, because if you get the foundations right, 95% of your problems are going to go away. Maybe 90, maybe 99, maybe 100% of your problems will go away. That's my experience most of the time. Get the foundations right first. Then we can look to refine things with an amazing supplement that could be really supportive, maybe. We just don't want to get carried away with these claims made on social media. So a couple of the concerns I have about women and how vulnerable women can be to the misinformation that's out there, the great marketing that's out there. And you have to be very discerning.
There's also like a lot of quick results as well. And so I know like a lot of the MLMers will like potentially come in raring and saying, oh, you don't know, and all the rest of it. And it's like, well, we understand that the results are there and we're wanting to create like something sustainable for women and have the supplements be like an amplification of the extraordinary work their body is doing, as opposed to the immediate solution to fix everything, which they may experience some immediate results, but then it kind of like they're just spending money on something that's not really fixing the problem. It's just putting a Band-Aid on it. So
right.
I love that you touched on that.
Yeah, well, exactly. Whenever we invest in an MLM, let's say it's weight loss drops or, a supplement that we think is going to speed up our metabolism. First of all, we need to be aware that nutrient or that formulation of nutrients, because there might be multiple nutrients in a formula, is only going to work to the degree that the root cause of our problem involves that nutrient or that particular combination of nutrients, and it may not. If you're struggling with excess weight because you have a slow, sluggish thyroid, then you're not going to benefit from a formula that's largely inositol, which is going to work at the metabolism level. You are needing thyroid support, and really a lot of our thyroid problems come from not having the right foundations in place. We can fix 95%. of our slow and sluggish thyroid through making different choices. You know, for me, it always, and just to help the audience understand what I'm talking about when I talk about getting great foundations in place, people's minds always go to diet. And yes, diet's a really important part, but it's diet, it's stress, it's toxicity, it's sleep, and it's movement. And I actually can't create or help a woman and show a woman how to create radiant health for herself if I don't take a holistic approach. Because I've had women come to me and the diet can be sometimes really pretty good, maybe even pretty close to, I wouldn't change much about that. But she may have so much stress in her body and in her life. And it's not always mental, emotional stress. It could be biochemical stress or a physical stress, spiritual stress, familial stress. There's lots of different forms of stress. And that might be what's impacting her health in a big way. Or she may be all over the stress, but her detox capacity is compromised. And that's where we need the support. Or the sleep might be out the window, or she's hammering herself at the gym and it's way too much movement for what she needs. And so I can't really help women create radiant health if we don't look at every facet of their lives. It's food, it's stress, it's toxins, it's sleep, and it's movement.
Gosh, okay. And so I want to just like pause here for a second, because me hearing you say that, I'm like, yes, I love this. It's, yes, makes sense. But for a lot of women hearing this, they're like, oh God, like there's just so many pieces, and like I'm just so freaking busy, and it can be overwhelming. But what I want to emphasize is that when like we're actually in the process of working together, and like when we're in your space and we're learning what you learn, what you know, and following your protocols, and you do it in such a gentle, nourishing way that it's not scary, it's not overwhelming. It's really easy to implement, and all of a sudden, like you're doing all these things that you normally wouldn't do, and you're like, oh, I feel really good. It's not a one size fits all, but also it is, because you're just like, it's just whole foods, and it's like really being gentle with ourselves and de-stressing with, like, everyone needs to de-stress, everybody needs to move, and everybody needs to eat nourishing whole foods. And it's just like really simplifying everything. So even though it sounds like a lot, you're actually simplifying everything. And then when we have all these protocols in place and we're starting to actually just like integrate it into our day-to-day lives, it gets really easy. And all of a sudden we have more energy, we have more stamina, we have more like pep in our step, we've got more zest for life, we have more time, like we have more time and energy and space to do things. And it's like, oh, I have time to do exercise now because we're feeling good, like everything's working. And so it's like, if you can trust the process and trust that it's going to be really simple and nourishing, and go at a pace that's not unreasonable, it's like so reasonable. It's because we get this fear of like, I feel like that's why the diet culture has been so, it makes me so angry. It makes me so angry, the diet culture that's been around for decades. Like telling women that they have to look a certain way, and like, what's the quickest way to get you to look a certain way? And it's like, well, no, it's not about looking a certain way. It's about actually being healthy, and how that looks for everyone is different. And so can we respect that every woman is different? And so I would actually really want to lean into a conversation around movement and exercise, because this one shocked me. And I know it's shocked a lot of your clients. And I know that there are so many women out there going, I'm eating healthy, in quotes, because they feel they're eating healthy, but that's another conversation. And I'm like, I'm going to the gym, I'm walking, I'm doing all the things, and nothing's happening. Could you speak to that a little bit? Because I think you might shock a lot of women.
Yeah, so many women come into my container and they are moving too much or not in the right ways. We've got to be so careful to choose movement that's appropriate for our age and our stage of life. It's not appropriate if you are 9 months postpartum and it's your third child, your body is in a process of recovery. It is not appropriate at that stage of life to be doing 3 or 4 PT sessions and playing group sport, like going to netball, and also trying to do a 6 km jog every, like, twice a week. And that sounds like an exaggeration, and I wish it was. I wish I could say that no women have ever come to me saying that they're doing that, but they are, and they're also they could be obese and doing this, because this is the programming we've grown up with as well. If you have excess weight on your body, why don't you just eat less and move more? The move more thing has been like shoved in our face for so long. And you know what, Samantha? I just always think of this beautiful, beautiful client. I know she won't mind that I say her name, Rebecca. She's absolutely gorgeous. And she came to me back a few years ago. I was had a clinic, and I would see people face to face, one-on-one. She came to me looking for help, and one of the things I said to her was, "Sweetheart, you need to exercise less." And she was like, "What?" And she had that look on her face. She didn't say these words, another woman said to me, but I knew this is what she was thinking. "But if I don't do all of that, I'm going to be a big fat whale."
Yes. Yep.
That's the concern. And gently, I just want to say, "Sweetheart, how do you feel right now?" Because you probably feel like a big fat whale. You're a big fat whale and you're exhausted. And we need to change. So, what we're doing is we're creating a very real physical and biochemical stress on the body when we're pushing, when we're exerting ourselves, and our body is not in a state to be able to manage that exertion. It's an extreme stress on the body. There's a time and a place for pushing our fitness. But a lot of the women who come to me, it's not the right time for that. And we really need to rehabilitate them first. We need to rebalance everything. Once their adrenal reserves come back, once their hormones are a little more balanced, I'm talking about all of the hormones, sex hormones, stress hormones, metabolic hormones. Once we've addressed a lot of the issues surrounding malnourishment, yes, this word malnourishment, we think of it and we think of little Ethiopian kids, but actually malnourishment is rife in the Western world. We eat a lot and we are still malnourished, unfortunately, for so many reasons. Once we nourish women and we get them back into balance, then we might be ready for a little bit of physical challenge. But actually, up until that point, slow, gentle walking is often the most appropriate movement. A little bit of yoga, maybe a Pilates class, but this whipping and beating our bodies at the gym when our hormonal axis is completely skewed and we're exhausted and the body's in survival mode is never going to bring the results that you want. It's actually going to keep you completely stuck. You're never going to achieve your ideal weight. And there are many, many case studies available to read through about this. We've got to shift away from this old, might I say, patriarchal idea of calories in, calories out. It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't work that way anyway, but especially doesn't work that way for women over the age of 40. Where the majority of the time, if she's struggling with weight, be it postpartum or later in life, if she's struggling with fatigue, if she's struggling with hair loss, dry skin and a low libido and low mood, that the involvement is usually a slow, sluggish thyroid, and it's a slower metabolism, and it's an imbalance of hormones. And we're not going to improve that situation by whipping and beating ourselves at the gym. We're only going to make it worse. And by doing the team sport and doing the 6 km jog and all of those things, we just actually further entrench this dynamic of the body being incredibly stressed, and we set ourselves up for disease. And it's got to stop. It's madness. We're not trying to burn calories. We don't want to be doing that anymore. We want to rebalance. We want to nourish the body back to health. So it's hard for women. And it is quite shocking when I say to them, stop this gym, CrossFit, working with a personal trainer, whatever, jogging, the running, stop. I just want you to walk for 20 minutes a day. And not for the purpose of burning calories. It's not not that kind of walking. Get that idea straight out of your head. Walk to nourish yourself. Walk to replenish your adrenals. Notice the trees. Listen to the birds chirping, right? This is where we rebalance. Walk for the purpose of moving the lymphatic system, because if we can move those toxins around, we'll move them to the organs that help us eliminate them. Move to feel your life force. And if you're too tired, then don't walk, don't move. It's okay. You can rest and then come to it when you're not exhausted. Stop. The madness has to stop. And then After being in my container for a little while, listen to your body. Your body will tell you if it wants to go to the gym. It will tell you if it's ready for the CrossFit again. I know the community is amazing. That's sometimes why women don't want to stop, because they really love the community. You can find a community of women who walk and maybe push their prams and have a chat while they walk or whatever. But we really want to get away from whipping and beating our bodies into shape. Our bodies are not a thing to be punished. Our beautiful bodies are our oldest friends and our greatest allies. This is this incredible vehicle that's carrying us through this experience of life. And we must meet it with that friendship and with that nurturing and with that care, and stop getting the whip out and hammering it at the gym. This has got to change. Our lives depend on it, actually, and our children's lives depend on it. So no more madness. I know it sounds counterproductive and counterintuitive, because we've been told we need to burn calories, but calories aren't the problem. You know, women out there, if you're struggling with excess weight, you didn't get that way because you ate too much. I just want you to know you didn't get that.
How did they get there? What are some of the things that is like inflammation in the body? Like, what are some of the things that really caused our weight gain?
Well, look, it is our day in, day out choices. And it is sometimes our choices around food, but it's unlikely that it's too much food, or they're just got no willpower and they're just a little bit hopeless and they just eat too much. It's normally, if it's the reasons pertaining to food, is more about the composition on the plate and the choices on the plate. When it's whole foods, it's usually very well assimilated into the body. And usually when it's whole foods, then we're able to absorb those nutrients from the food. And the nutrients power our biochemistry. The biochemistry that helps to make our thyroid tick along nicely and help good thyroid hormone conversion and support metabolism and support sex hormones. You know, we don't want an imbalance of sex hormones because that contributes to excess weight as well. A lot of women have a relative estrogen dominance. And as I mentioned before, I use particular foods as medicines to help to rebalance, to help to undo some of the damage. But, you know, we can maintain that with great choices on our plate too, right? So how did we get there? Not through too much food, but through the wrong kinds of foods. But we also got there because the stress and the nervous system, you know, running in this fight or flight, you know, sympathetic nervous system dominance has thrown our hormones out of whack, has impacted our immune system, has slowed our metabolism, has on purpose told our thyroid, don't convert T4 to T3 because we're going to lose weight. We don't want to lose weight because it's a dangerous world out there. We want to hold on to weight. That's our food for the future, because your body doesn't know the difference between, you know, emails flooding in and text messages and phone calls and running for your life from a tiger. Same thing, right? Same thing to your nervous system. And so the message from your body is slow the metabolism down, because you might need to go and hide in the cave for a little while, and there might be no food for a little while. And so hang on to this. Don't lose that belly. Don't lose those thighs and that butt. That's your food for next week. And it's all by design. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken. This is your body's intelligence just trying to save you. Your body wants you to live. Isn't that beautiful? Your body wants you to survive. But we're not in harmony with our body. We're not really understanding what our body's trying to do for us. But your beautiful body, everything that happens, every symptom that happens, there's nothing broken. There's absolutely nothing broken. The anxiety, the excess weight, the fatigue, joint pain, the fibromyalgia or the rheumatoid arthritis, the hot flushes, nothing is broken. It's all, you know, every single one of those things is your body's intelligence. It's a response. It's a survival instinct that's kicking in. And it's, you know, your body's saying, hey, pay attention. Someone's got to change here. Someone's got to change. And like, this is all meant to be. There's nothing wrong, because without these symptoms, women would keep running on empty and they'd keep living these lives where boundaries are non-existent and they're trying to control things that aren't theirs to control, and they're, you know, so we need the symptoms to wake us up. The symptoms are going to get us back on track and back into alignment and keep us moving towards our true purpose, our soul's purpose that we're here for. You know, that's the wake-up call, the little awakenings as the symptoms that cause us pain, that make us change, hopefully make us change. Hopefully we don't make the choice just to use a medication that suppresses the symptom, because then nothing changes and we don't get back on track. But feeling like shit, feeling overweight, feeling the low mood, feeling the pain in our body, the hair falling out, all of it, feeling shit is the way. This is the way, because this is the awakening. It's not the destination, but it's the map to get there. Because if you didn't have those symptoms, you wouldn't change anything. And if you didn't have those symptoms and you didn't change anything, then your children wouldn't be learning from your modeling, right? And this is going to affect generation. This is the ripple effect. So it's all perfect. Everything is exactly as it's meant to be. The symptoms are perfect. We just need us to pay attention and start listening. The symptoms aren't the enemy. They're the map showing you the way.
I love that. I love that profoundly. That's beautiful. And okay, so there's like, I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I feel like every woman needs to just sit down and just have like a 5-hour masterclass on this. And maybe we'll come around for another episode, but with everything that you've shared, and there's like, I really want to encourage women to re-listen to this podcast, because you have dropped so many really simple, practical tips. You've like things that women can start doing immediately, start experiencing some extremely profound results, healing, weight loss, all the rest of it, right? Some of these, just re-listen to this. And then once they've done this and they've started to experience results and they're like, holy shit, this woman knows what she's talking about. Where can they come and find you? What is this container, Radiant Health Reset, that women come into you?
Yeah, the Radiant Health Reset is my flagship program. It's my favorite way of working with women through the 4 pillars of my work. So that is a great place to come. But if you just want to dip your toes in, if you're not sure if a full reset, because let me tell you, I don't need to tell you, Samantha, because you're doing it. But the Radiant Health Reset is a container where we do push our sleeves up. We get stuck in, right? We don't dabble. It's an anti-dabbling zone. We push our sleeves up and we do the work for rapid transformation. I do it that way on purpose, because when I used to be in a clinic and we'd make tiny changes, we'd get tiny results, very dissatisfying for me and dissatisfying for the client as well. And so this is my preferred way to work with women. It's like, let's get stuck in. Yes, we're all in, and then we're all transformed. And it becomes natural. Like, it's the most incredible embodiment. Like, it's not just, you don't just get information, you actually are practicing day in, day out. And so the transformation is real and it's permanent. But if people aren't feeling like they're ready for that, if that feels like a big ask, I have an incredible free Facebook group. It's called Radiant Health for Women 40 Plus. And how do you find that? Well, you can find me on Facebook, and then you can find my group because it's linked on my Facebook page. And in that group, I just love to share a lot of information. I do free training sessions every week. There's resources in the group. There's actually so much in the group. You really could start your own transformation all on your own if you wanted to, and if you're motivated enough to. And then for those who need the community and they need the system, follow the bouncing ball, then we have the Radiant Health Reset, my flagship 90-day program that they can come into, which also there's an option for a membership at the end. And there's many, many other ways to work with me as well. Just pop into my Facebook group and you can see all the many ways.
I love that. And we'll drop all the links as well into the show notes so that they can find you directly through there. And then for women who are listening in and they're at the very beginning and this is overwhelming and they're like, I understand how important this is and still I don't know where to start. Is there a form, like a contemplation that you can offer, or like one small step, like strategic step that they could take to help them on their way?
Yeah. Here's what I feel like I want to say. If we're talking women over 40, and I feel like this is probably where this market is at, or, kind of 35 onwards, starting the very early stages of perimenopause, starting to wonder it's kind of feel like how I used to feel, and the things I used to do aren't working so well. What I want to say to them is eating less whether you want to call it intermittent fasting, or you want to call it caloric restriction, or you want to call it one meal a day, OMAD, people call it OMAD. Call it what you like. Eating less is going to backfire for you. Nourish yourself. I'm giving you permission to eat more, but eat foods that are designed for human beings. And that's not the ones in the packages. Yeah. So start there. Start with food, because you're going to feel the biggest difference in your body when you start with food. And yes, we need to do the other stuff. We do need to have a daily practice to help our nervous system reset. And we need to look at aspects of toxicity and enhancing our detox capacity, but we can leave that for later. If you just want to take one tiny step, nourish yourself with food, eat frequently throughout the day, feed yourself when you feed your children or even before. Don't leave yourself till last. Because if you try to eat less, if you try to do this intermittent fasting thing, if you wait until the afternoon to eat, chances are your body is just in no state to cope with that right now. You don't have the adrenal reserves for that. You don't have the hormonal balance to be able to cope with that. And so your body, that feels like stress. It's actually going to exacerbate your problems. Have breakfast.
Oh, yes.
Have breakfast. How much are you loving breakfast right now?
I love breakfast a lot. I love all my meals a lot, actually. I love eating anyway, but knowing that I'm nourishing myself and then not feeling hungry and then not having to restrict anything is like the best gift I could ever give to myself. So thank you.
It is such a gift, isn't it? I'm totally giving permission to women everywhere to eat. Eat. When you're eating the right kinds of foods, it's actually very hard to eat too much. Don't restrict yourself, Have I ever told you, like, to control your portions? Like, I've never said that to you, have I? Never, because it's me.
And I was nervous at the beginning because I was like, because I'm still breastfeeding. So I'm like, I automatically know I need to eat until I'm satiated because my body's doing a lot of stuff. But like even my portions are getting less just because my body's more nourished. And so I'm stopping before completing and then feeling full and nourished. And I'm just like, wow, this is like, it's amazing what you can do when you're eating whole foods and like the right kinds of foods and adding in all the fats and everything. So it's just like anyone who's sitting on the fence, if you have questions, you can ask me, even like drop into my DMs and ask me any questions. I'll be talking a lot more about this anyway on my own social media because I'm very passionate about it. Is there any final words that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I want to say that Radiant Health is not about doing. Creating Radiant Health for yourself. It's not this list you need to kind of tick off. It's actually who you become. It's more about becoming. It's more about being, not doing. You know what I'm saying? And I don't always have the language to describe this, but I think we feel this in the Radiant Health Reset. It's changing the thoughts. It's changing where your focus is. And then it really becomes very natural. And so when you do a reset like mine, I don't want women to think like, oh God, it sounds so time consuming. Like, oh, it's just going to explode my brain, because it's not like that. You can do a lot if you want to, or you can do very little if you want to, but it's far more about who you are being, leading yourself with good choices in every moment, which, you could do lots and lots of prep and cook everything from scratch, or you could take a few shortcuts. It doesn't really matter. It's more about who are you being when you make those choices? What are you leading yourself towards? So I just wanted to clarify that for women, so that women don't become scared. Like, I'm going to get really overwhelmed if I start working on their health. You don't need to. You just start like me. I just had a pen and I did one little thing and then I built on it. That's what it's about. Building slowly. Get that under your belt. Then there's the next little thing.
I love that. Oh, I have thoroughly loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being so open, transparent, and just sharing all your divine wisdom. I look forward to a part 2. There's more coming. There's going to be more coming.
Oh, we have so much to talk about. Thank you so much for having me on your brilliant podcast. I feel so honored to be amongst the Rebel Matriarch alumni, if I would
Yay!
like to say that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. It's been so much fun, and I would love to come back again.
Amazing. All right, ladies, let's get to work. Thank you for being here, gorgeous woman, for rising with us, remembering with us, and refusing to shrink inside a world that benefits from your silence. If this episode moved you, cracked you open, or reminded you of who the hell you are becoming, share it with a woman who is ready to rise too. I want to invite you to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating so this message becomes too loud, too wild, and too undeniable to be ignored. The movement grows because of women like you, women who choose truth over comfort, liberation over obedience, and voice over disappearance. You can connect with me, Samantha Sanford, at Rebel Matriarch, and all links to our guest are in the show notes below. Until next time, stay rooted, stay rebellious, and remember, the world changes when women refuse to disappear.